Nocturne Productions presents Tales from the Dark Waves, a gothic horror anthology series created by Cole Burgett. Listener discretion is advised.
Tales from the Dark Waves, Episode 2, The Baron, narrated by Adler Hyatt. Starring Joshua Jones and Kelsey Abberger, written and directed by Cole Burgett. Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, 1868. The night was hot and humid. Clothes clung to bodies slick with sweat. Skin glistened in the ghostly glow of the pale moonlight. A heavy fog gathered, obscuring the narrow pathways through the swamps and bayous. One wrong step meant death, or worse. Along one of those worn paths rolled a rickety coach. At length, it came to a stop outside of an old plantation home. The driver sat strangely still, without movement, without breath. As the carriage door snapped open and out climbed a tall man, wearing a dark suit and top hat. The man stood for a time, staring up at the large house. It was swathed in heavy shadows, lights burning in only a few windows. Finally, after several long moments, he stepped forward and rapped his knuckles against the front door. His summons was answered in short order by a stocky man dressed in a fine suit, the attire of a house servant. The color drained from the servant's face when he saw the man in the top hat. The stories of the Bokor were known throughout the territory in those days. Stories often told in fear and whispers. The house servant had heard many of those dreaded tales, so he bowed low and tried to keep his trembling hands hidden from sight as he wordlessly escorted the man in the top hat through the darkened hallways of the house. He guided him into an open sitting room, approached a woman sitting there in a carved chair, and bowed again. The light of a nearby candle bathed half of the woman in its warm glow, while her other half was enveloped by the long shadows of the room. She gave the servant the smallest of nods, and he promptly spun on his heels and walked away, leaving her alone with the man in the top hat. Her green eyes looked him up and down, seemingly lidless, for she did not so much as blink.
You are the Bokor?
The man removed his hat in a gesture of respect.
And you are the mistress of the house?
I am. My name is Marie Durocher.
I know who you are.
She gestured at an empty chair next to her.
Please, have a seat.
I prefer to stand.
Suit yourself. Tell me what it is you do, exactly.
I suspect you know that already. Otherwise, I would not be standing before you.
Oh, make no mistake, your reputation precedes you, Bokor. But I want to hear it from your mouth. In your own words, if you please.
The man replaced his top hat. His dark eyes reflected the light of the candles burning on the table next to her. As he spoke, the flames from those candles caused the shadows to dance weirdly across his face.
I serve the Loa with both hands. Rada, Petro. It makes no difference to me, so long as the price is right, of course.
You need not worry about price. You will be more than compensated for the work you do.
That remains to be seen, Miss Durocher. Tell me, why have you summoned me here at such an hour, and on such short notice at that?
For the first time since he had entered the room, her eyes shifted from him and wandered across the room before settling on a tall portrait of a man hanging on the wall.
That is my husband. He is but one day departed from this world.
You have my sympathy.
A kind gesture, but unnecessary after tonight.
The Bokor's face fell. He lowered his eyes and focused upon the dull sheen of moonlight that bled through the windows and spilled across the wooden floor. He could feel her gaze upon him again and sensed her noting his reservation.
What causes such a look of dismay, Bokor? As I said, you need not worry about price.
You do not know what it is for which you ask, Miss Durocher.
Do not tell me what I know and do not know. You stand in my home. I understand your usual clients to be individuals of little means or status, beggars and the like. Well, I can assure you I am not one of them. The war may be over, Bokor, but we are still as far south as the map allows. I do not care if you commune with spirits. There was a time not so long ago when I could have you here working these very grounds, and command you to do my bidding rather than ask.
Now the Bokor met her gaze, unblinking, unflinching.
My words are not meant to disrespect Miss Durocher, but to caution, to warn.
And in this house, under this roof, my words are taken as gospel. Do you understand?
I understand.
Excellent. Now, you will agree to return my husband to me and be compensated, or you will find me another Bokor worthy of the reputation of your kind.
The Bokor considered her words, and decided he did not like the woman sitting before him. With a slight shrug and a curt nod, he turned and started for the door.
Hold.
He hesitated, arm outstretched, hand hovering above the door handle.
If you cross that threshold, I will have you shot. Time is against me on this matter.
Then perhaps you should reconsider how you conduct your business.
How I conduct my business is of no concern to you, if indeed you are only concerned with payment. But you would be wise to never again turn your back on me. No slave has ever walked away from me and lived to see the dawn of a new day.
Slowly, the Bokor turned to face her again.
I am no slave, Miss Durocher, and despite what you think you command, you have no power over life or death.
There are some few slaves buried on these grounds who would disagree with that assertion.
The bodies of slaves lay the foundations of many such houses that now lie in ruin. Their graves were dug by none other but the Baron himself, as are all graves.
Then I should like to deal with him directly.
With a quiet and ominous laugh, the Bokor crossed the room to stand before her once more.
Very well. I will do what you ask.
She rose from her chair and swept across the room.
This way.
He followed her out of the sitting room and through a series of darkened corridors. Eventually, she opened a door leading to a stairwell that descended beneath the home. They followed the stairs down into the black depths of the foundation, and to their end in a chamber lit only by the lights of a few torches hanging in sconces on the supporting pillars. In the center of the chamber, lying on a slab of wood and covered in a mound of crushed ice, was the body of the man from the portrait.
I had his remains put on ice the moment he expired. I have preserved him as well as I could. Now you will return him to me before it is too late.
The Bokor stepped forward and examined the body.
I offer you a final warning, Miss Durocher. This is not how such rituals are conducted. I have not captured this man's T-Bon-Ange.
I did not marry my husband with the intention of living but half of a lifetime with him. Death has parted us, but with you here, that need not be the case.
The Baron has dug your husband's grave. If we continue upon this course, there is no guarantee of what he will send back.
I shall take my chances with the Baron, and with you.
After a long pause, the Bokor nodded.
Very well. Your choices are your own this night.
Reaching into the pocket of his overcoat, he retrieved a small bag and unfastened its leather strap. Kneeling next to the body, he shook a small handful of a white, powdery substance from the bag and into the palm of his hand. With a sharp breath, he blew the powder into the dead man's face. Then he fastened the bag shut, returned it to his pocket, and receded into the shadows of the chamber, mumbling dark utterances. Marie Durocher stood fixated upon her dead husband, breathlessly awaiting the ritual's completion. All at once, a strange, cold wind caused the torch flames to whip wickedly back and forth. Icy fingers took hold of her spine. Suddenly, the dead man's eyes fluttered open. With a gasp, she started toward him, but the Bokor reached from the shadow and caught her by the shoulder.
Wait.
She hesitated, watching the dead man stir. He sat up and struggled to his feet, shedding the ice as if it were an old skin, reborn, as it were, from the cold grip of death. She could wait no longer. She tore herself from the Bokor's reach and raced to embrace her husband. His skin was frigid and coarse to the touch, sending her own crawling with goose flesh. Scarcely had she fastened her arms about him that she looked up into his lifeless eyes, still frozen with death. They gazed upon her with no trace of warmth or familiarity. Now she recoiled violently and turned to the Bokor.
What is wrong with him?
It is as I warned you. There was never any guarantee of what spirit the Baron would send back.
But you control them, do you not? The ones you bring back? The stories of the Bokor say that you control them.
Those whose spirits I have captured in a complex ritual, perhaps. But as I told you, Miss Durocher, this man's grave has already been dug.
What warped sorcery have you brought into my home?
Only that which you yourself have invited.
Release him from whatever spell holds him. Command him to return to his home and his wife.
I have no control over what the Baron has returned.
Slowly she turned and looked upon her husband's corpse with fresh fear. His cold eyes settled upon her, and the gaze of the dead stole her breath away.
What is happening? Why does he look upon me with such dark appetite?
I believe the Baron has chosen to dig your grave as well.
What?
Suddenly, the living corpse surged forward. She opened her mouth only for his hands to close around her throat, choking off her scream and the very life inside of her along with it. The corpse forced her back against one of the pillars. She struggled against him, her eyes searching frantically for the Bokor, pleading with him to undo whatever black magic had conjured the dead to life. But the Bokor had spoken truly when he told her that such power was beyond his control. He lingered in the shadows of the chamber, watching as the corpse strangled that woman to death.
It would seem the Baron has elected to grant you your wish, Miss Durocher. He will be speaking with you directly after all.
When she finally stopped moving, the corpse released her. Her body slumped to the floor in a heap. Then a cold wind blew through the chamber, snuffing the flames from the torches and carrying whatever spirit had animated the corpse of the dead man away again. As quickly as it came, the wind dissipated, leaving only darkness and silence in its wake. Now 2 bodies lay on the floor of the chamber, a husband and a wife, united once again. The Bokor removed his hat in deference to the Baron's work, then made his way back up the stairs and left the chamber. He moved silently through the house, pausing only once, long enough to acknowledge the fear-stricken manservant.
Something tells me your services will no longer be required in this house. Good night.
Then, without another word, the Bokor exited the home and climbed back into the carriage that still awaited him. He willed that the driver turn back along the path through the swamp, and a moment later heard the crack of the reins. The coach set to moving again, rattling like bones along the misty path, leaving the old plantation to be swallowed by the darkness and the fog. Nocturne Productions presents Tales from the Dark Waves. This episode was narrated by Adler Hyatt, and features the vocal talents of Joshua Jones as the Bokor and Kelsey Abberger as Marie Durocher. This episode was written and directed by Cole Burgett. Follow Nocturne Productions on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at NocturnePodPro. For just a few dollars per month, consider becoming a patron by visiting www.patreon.com/nocturneproductions.